had one sex ed class in 5th grade, and it wasn't so much sex ed, it was more like one day you're gonna bleed, and a male might take advantage of you. He might say these things and do these things. You tell him no.
The education at the time was very like, abstain, or you get these diseases, or you get pregnant. And then everything else, I just learned from my classmates.
In my physical education course, we also had kind of like a health course. He was like, these are the different types of STIs you can get. If you wear a condom, you're most likely not to get it. And that's all it was. I didn't learn about IUDs, patches. There's so many things about the menstrual cycle that I had to learn on my own.
There's a teacher actually that randomly just tries to objectify women. The whole abortion thing, he was really against that. He made it really clear to the entire classroom.
In that time, they separated us by boys and girls, and then they taught us about our menstrual cycle, and I'm not so sure what they taught the boys.
We were sitting in the classroom, all of us girls were just staring around. Meanwhile, they let the boys outside for extra recess. So we're getting taught about consent and how we might be taken advantage of by men. They should also be in here having this conversation.
I know there's that whole idea that like, oh, they're tiny, they shouldn't learn about that. But considering the fact that we were like 10 or 11, some guys were talking about watching pornography at that age.
Wow.
If you let boys just know that periods are blood, they don't understand it. If you don't have a conversation with boys, if you don't teach them, if you don't have girls in the room to explain, they think it's like when you open a faucet of water and that it's that nonstop.
Women's voices are constantly being silenced about these issues. Women are taught to not talk about their problems and to keep them quiet because women are supposed to be like these perfect feminine beings meant to give birth to children.
Now is to make sure that kids know that there's options. Condoms exist. Birth control for girls. There's options for you. It helps to have someone you can talk to about them. You might have a student who doesn't have a maternal figure at home.
I know when I was younger, I was really scared to talk about my period again, just because I feel like there's this whole stigma. If I had to go to the restroom really badly and it was something period related, I would not mention it like at all. I would just say it like it was an emergency. Obviously, there were some teachers that just didn't care and would tell me to go back to my seat because again, they never got that education about the menstrual cycle.
I do have a restroom policy. I believe strongly in maximizing class time. Each quarter, students are given 2 passes. If they do not use the pass is redeemed for points at the end of the quarter.
So many times me and my classmates would complain about how badly we had to go to the restroom, but we were like, if I don't go to the restroom, it would push up my grade.
Every semester has 5 months, which means you at least have your period 5 times. They're more than likely going multiple times a day. So having 2 passes is ridiculous.
That history class was just like, it didn't let me go to the restroom. If I put it in before my English class and I had to take it off sometime between my history class, I couldn't.
I can understand why students might be hesitant to do this. I have always made an exception for female students that are dealing with female issues.
Sometimes when I had to have to get a pad out of my backpack, I would do it super discreetly, slowly get my pad and like stick it into my sweater or like down my pants or something just so no one would see it. And I remember even just sometimes wanting to ask my friends, oh, do you guys get really bad cramps? Like, how do you guys deal with it? But I remember being super embarrassed because, again, that whole idea that our periods and the problems with our periods should be kept to ourselves.
So my male PE teacher basically told us that for the girls, you only get 2 days, and on those 2 days off, you're supposed to do the workout that's meant to be as a punishment, which makes no sense because your period is out of your control.
One of my students said something like, so-and-so, he's super sweet.